It's 7:45 a.m. You're very welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTBAM. We're here. We're live from the Web Summit once again in Lisbon, and we've got one hell of a show for you this morning. We've been speaking to some of the stars from the sports trade stage here at Web Summit and from numerous other areas over the last 24 hours. The likes of Paige VanZant, Jemele Hill, André Villas-Boas and Anastasia Ashley are coming your way before 9 a.m. this morning. We're also going to be bringing you Ger Gilroy very, very shortly. He's just attending to some business, but Jess Kelly's with me for the time being. Good morning, Jess.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. This is an incredible show, Web Summit. It is, like you were just mentioning a moment ago, that Tony Blair's on the main stage. Yesterday I was watching a talk about how esports athletes are doping. My world has expanded to new horizons.
There's nothing off the agenda here, and what's so interesting, when this started out, it was, I'm going to build an app and I'm going to change the world. Now, everyone who's anyone in the world of politics, sport, technology, they're all coming here because the conversations you can have and the people you can reach. Very, very interested to see Tony Blair later on today. I think he's in conversation with someone. I don't know what the agenda of that topic or of that panel will be, but it's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, for sure. You're on the unboxing stage?
Yeah, so that was like a new stage they brought along. So there are 13 stages here, which is massive again for the scale of it. So yesterday we had a new stage called Unboxed, and we were literally unboxing product. We had smartphones, we had smartwatches, and it was like, because the unboxing thing is huge. So we had a guy there who's very, very young. I think he's about your age, and he has... You're still a child. He had 11 million YouTube subscribers, and all he does is take phones out of boxes on the internet.
That is incredible. That is a life I would like to lead.
Well, I think that's like maybe a new direction for this channel. Like, forget the sports talk, just like open things.
No interviews for you this morning. We're just taking things out of boxes. That's what we're going to do this morning on OTBAM. If you've got any comments, if you've got any questions, you can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can comment on the Facebook or YouTube stream as well. I think we can bring up on stage our special guest this morning. Give it up for Ger Gilroy.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Very good morning. How are you?
Just some difficulties with the mic.
Yeah. Is that what it was?
That was exactly what it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How are you guys?
Very well. Any crack?
Yeah, I see Paige VanZant announce her fight. We're going to break that world exclusive in our interview with her, right? Like, that's exactly what's going to happen today.
Well,
you're going to get the details. You're going to do journalism with a capital J. Go, oh, Paige, who exactly are you fighting? And when are you fighting them?
To be fair, I did my due diligence. I asked her twice and she wouldn't give you the name of the opponent, but she has subsequently posted on social media who the opponent is. So,
did she talk to you about the fact that she's going to be joining WWE as well?
What?
Talk to her about that?
No.
All right, okay.
Is that
That's what happened on stage yesterday in the interview that she did with,
Well, I spoke to her before that interview. Clearly there was a better journalist doing
You're not selling your interview, just stop talking.
Our interview is amazing.
Right.
It is, and it's coming your way very, very shortly. It's definitely worth sticking around for.
What else did you like about yesterday? So you were wandering around yesterday. I was obviously on stage for a bit of it, doing the MC stuff, listening to the talks and sports trade. What else did you like about yesterday?
I liked the idea that there was like a massive robot wandering around, just kind of like chilling. It's like I could make friends with that robot if I wanted to. I could network with that robot.
That robot has citizenship. Is that Sophia the robot?
I think so.
The one that looks like a person. So she has citizenship in a country where women's rights are still like appalling. A robot has better rights than women in the country where she's from. It's bonkers. And they're developing her. So she uses artificial intelligence, but she also has a face. So she has like cheekbones. So she can smile really passively aggressively and kind of give you evils. It's pretty freaky, but that's what we're going to see. When I was here 2 or 3 years ago, there was an airline showcasing, and what they're saying is that their air stewards, that when you get to the airport and you're checking in, it's going to be those type of Sophia robots interacting with you rather than human beings.
That's dystopian future.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't actually get an interview with Sophia. I'm afraid to break that news today, but it's the scale of this place which is absolutely incredible. As I say, as we were just saying at the top of the show there, the different random things you just stumble upon are incredible.
Well, we're in a different stage today. So yesterday we were in Pavilion 1, today we're in Pavilion 2. Didn't really know Pavilion 2 existed yesterday because I was in Pavilion 1 all day.
There are 4 pavilions. So the
same size over and again.
Yes, if you picture the RDS, which is where this used to be, this is like 3 or 4 times that. So there's a big arena, kind of like the 3 Arena where the main stage is. That's where all the big talks are happening. And then this is like 4 mini RDSs, one after the other, and that's where a lot of the startups are showcasing, and then the breakout stages are. It's huge, like it's absolutely massive.
Yeah, it's the scale of this thing which is insane. The sports trade stage which you were emceeing yesterday, what was your highlight from that?
That's a good question. I guess the fact that so many randomers are like coming up and talking about stuff. So, like, I'm not a WWE fan really, so having one of the McMahons there wasn't that big a deal for me. but I could see everybody going, wow, that's...
Darren Cleary.
What was her name?
It was Stephanie McMahon was
Stephanie,
there. Yeah. And spoke really well about the idea of moving an organisation that was such a huge deal in the 90s into an organisation that's such a huge deal in the year 2018.
Yeah. Did you talk about Saudi Arabia? Was
that was like the very first question. The TNBC MC, in fairness to her, went straight in with it. There was a little bit of controversy. She was like straight in with the Saudi Arabia question. So she was like, it's a market that we're interested in. And that's how she answered that one. One of the more interesting dynamics on that stage yesterday, actually, and we'll be speaking to her later on, is Jemele Hill interviewing John Skipper, formerly of ESPN. John Skipper, formerly of ESPN, formerly the guy who suspended Jemele Hill after her controversy at ESPN around her political activism on Twitter. And
so explain who Jemele Hill is for people who are unfamiliar.
So she's a former host of the 6 o'clock Sports Centre, which is obviously the biggest sports centre out there, maybe after Scott Van Pelt's one. And after the Charlestown incident a couple of years ago, she tweeted that Donald Trump is a white supremacist and everyone around him are white supremacists. And then Donald Trump, as he does, took to Twitter. I'm not sure if you knew that. He has a Twitter account to say that the reason why ESPN are losing and hemorrhaging viewers is because of Jemele Hill and her political views and the fact that she's talking about politics on air. And to be fair, she doubled down. She said it again, and she wasn't going to back down. ESPN weren't happy. They suspended her, and after a while, she eventually left. She now works for The Atlantic, the publication. She's based in LA, but the publication that of course, is based in DC. So very interesting stuff. She used to work for The Undefeated as well. Excellent talker, excellent ideas on Colin Kaepernick and race and politics and sport and that intersection. So that's a really interesting piece coming up later on.
So you did great work yesterday, basically, for the last 5 minutes.
To be honest with you, all I've done is excellent work here.
Fair play.
If it's networking with people that don't exist, or if it's doing great interviews, that's just my life.
So this is your first time here, so what is your genuine perception of the Web Summit?
The scale is insane. It is just huge, and in every nook and cranny you can find something different. I'm actually, because there's no sports trade talks on today, I think today kind of leaves yourself open to the idea of actually exploring a little bit more and seeing what's actually going on. Like yesterday was very much the main thoroughfare, looking at people queuing for the BMW i and actually getting a test drive, going through to Microsoft and going through to sport and then going back to the main stage. But today, like I'm looking forward to seeing all these other organisations that are here.
That queue was for a test drive?
Yeah.
Right. Is it a driverless car or what? It's just a car?
I think it's just a car with a lot of tech in it. I think. I could be wrong.
Right. Because there was a mad queue for it like all day yesterday. They're queuing at lunchtime instead of eating. What's wrong with these people?
You can't talk down the appeal of driving a BMW, Jer.
I'm not going to, but...
Is that your pitch to get a BMW?
They're obviously lovely cars, but like it was a mad hour-long queue.
Yeah. But that happens though at these things. Like people go insane. Like I was at the Consumer Electronics Show in Vegas.
Oh, name drop one.
Yeah, no, I know. I travel a lot. But that happens for any experience you can get. There was, you could stand in a photo booth and get your picture taken behind a Google logo, and you'd be immersed in the Google logo. And people were queuing for that for like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I think just people want to try and get as much out of it. The really interesting thing about Web Summit is that initially they had celebrities coming and being the big names for the sake of it. So they could say they had like Eva Longoria or whatever it was. In recent years, that they're moving the focus slightly so that the talks, it's better quality talks, it's better produced than it was, it's no longer just name grabbing. But then there are loads of different experiences you can do around the place. There's a lot of like VR, AR, and the robots. Like there are robots going around with coffee as well. I don't know if you've seen those.
No, I did not.
They come up to you with a tray. It's kind of freaky.
That is terrifying.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
We're going to go and we're going to hear from our first interview. Do you want to watch my first piece of amazing work that I did?
Am I going to get some food? Is there anything?
No, I'd like a coffee.
Yeah. Seriously, this is going to be good, right? This is going to be good. He says it's his best work ever.
It really is, though. It's worth sticking around for. We've got, as I say, Jemele Hill. We've got Anastasia, Ashley, André Villas-Boas coming your way a little bit later on as well this morning. But first, here is a UFC fighter, Paige VanZant. I chatted to her before she announced her fight, so forgive me for asking her what her next move is going to be. But anyway, here's how our conversation went. All right, as you can see, UFC fighter Paige VanZant joins me now. Paige, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Not too bad. It's your first time in Lisbon, I understand?
This is my first time in Portugal altogether, and it's been pretty awesome though so far.
Part of your honeymoon, you were just saying, which is pretty cool.
Kinda. We're trying to make it a honeymoon-ish. He fought right after our wedding, and then I've been traveling since then. So we're gonna try to like sightsee while we're here, and then we both jump into a fight camp when we get back.
Yeah, so I understand. Well, congratulations on everything. And,
Thank you.
We'll chat about your fight camp and your injury, because it was an interesting one very shortly. We should start with Web Summit. And you're speaking at a number of different roundtables and panels. The one that really stuck out to me is, why can athletes brand themselves better than startups? Which is a great title for any discussion. So tell me why. Why can athletes brand themselves better than startups?
Gosh, it's definitely an interesting question, especially because it is still hard to brand yourself being a professional athlete. Especially, you don't want to kind of put yourself into a specific box within the industry that you're in. So a football player just being a football player, or a fighter, me just putting myself into the box of a fighter. You have to find ways to make yourself known outside of just your small world. So I think it's, in a sense, easier for us because as fighters, because it is an individual sport. So we get to put ourselves forward, we get to put whoever we want to be at the forefront. We're not necessarily representing a team or representing a specific number, or having to wear a football helmet. So you can see exactly who we are. And I think it's easier as athletes is because there is so many more eyes on us. People become fans. And when you have fans, you have those people that want to follow you and gravitate towards you. Whereas with startups, it's not necessarily something that you have to actually really work on selling yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. When did you realize that?
When I was asked the question, I kind of, when I was told that's kind of what I would be speaking upon in my roundtable, I went in and I really thought about it and why it is easier. And for me, I do have to focus so much on branding myself and making myself a brand and not just a fighter.
So when you get into the UFC, I presume that's something that's in your mind immediately, that, it's always been a part of the fight game, really, the brand, but we're only really speaking about it in the last 10 years as such. Like the brands like Muhammad Ali had a great brand, but maybe he didn't refer to it as a brand.
Yes. Well, and I actually necessarily didn't think of it when I first started in the UFC. It was after I was getting a name for myself, and the media kind of brands you for you, and then you have to work on whether you like that stigma or who you want to be and put yourself forward. And that's something that I've done, is I really am just true to myself, and I feel like that sells so much easier than trying to put on a facade or put on a character. It works for some athletes, but in another sense, it can feel very ingenuine.
Sure.
So it's really about just putting your best self forward and showing off what you want the world to see.
Do you have many discussions about your brand with UFC chiefs? Does Dana White actively encourage people to get out there and push their own brand?
No, I haven't had to. I feel like I am so active on social media, and I have a lot of fun showing off all the different things that I do outside of fighting, being on Dancing with the Stars and writing a book. I have so many passions outside of fighting. It was kind of easy for me to do the cross promotion and then get on Dancing with the Stars and things like that. But I definitely know that there are other athletes it's a little bit harder for, and it's something where finding what about you makes you special, and that's going to sell to fans, because at the end of the day, we are professional fighters, but it's still an entertainment industry.
Yeah, for sure. And we can see that, like, when you look at someone like Conor McGregor, like, he's
exactly
a good fighter, but he was always helped by the fact that he was a great talker, and his brand helped him climb that ladder. So, like, it really is a question of what percentage would you place on your brand and what percentage would you place on your fighting ability. You obviously need to be an outstanding world-class fighter to be where you are. But to actually stand out from the crowd, because the differences are so tiny at that level of any sport.
You have to find what makes yourself stand out, and that was the hard thing you see with somebody like Demetrius Johnson, who was a multi-time champion, the most successful champion in the UFC, yet he didn't do that next step to brand himself. And that was, I think, where Conor stood out from the crowd. There's those few athletes that make themselves known, and I think that's a whole other champion mentality, to make sure that the world knows who you are, and that's something so special that not a lot of people have.
What's your unique brand?
Gosh, my unique brand, I don't know. I think I feel like I just put my best self forward, and that's me sharing the pieces of my life that people don't necessarily ask about, or people that they don't necessarily know. So being able to show my dance skills on Dancing with the Stars, being able to show that I cook too and be on Chopped, and being able to differentiate myself than any other athlete in the UFC.
So to show yourself as a human being and not just as a fighter.
Exactly. Show that I'm a human and I'm not just a tough person that gets locked in a cage and fights another person.
Yeah, absolutely. The one last thing I wanted to ask you about branding, it's quite an interesting topic, I guess, in this part of the world where football is the #1 sport.
Yes.
And we've had this conversation quite a bit over the last couple of weeks when it comes to football clubs not signing a player based entirely on their Instagram followers, but it is suddenly a part of modern football business.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sure if that's something that surprises you at all, where you look at somebody like Paul Pogba who plays for Manchester United, and like there has been some suggestion that Manchester United were quite interested in the fact that he's got so many million followers on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, in one way, you know, I do get it, but then the other sense, you know, you do have to have this skill to be a part of a team and to be such a player in such a high level field. You still have to be an athlete first. And I think that that's the difference with like the UFC. They do sign people based on, you know, popularity, but at the same time, you have to have the skill to back it up. Because at the same time, you're going in there and you're fighting somebody, or you're playing against somebody, and your skill should be first and foremost the most important thing.
Sure, like I totally agree. But also, what I really like about the UFC is that, like as you say, they make no bones about it. It's like, fair enough,
Yes.
you know, these are great fighters, but they're also great characters. There's nothing wrong with that. Whereas some sports are like, hold on a minute, we're more upfront about this, then everybody can just kind of move forward a little bit, and actually we can talk about branding in a much more sensible way than we already do. I think you guys in the UFC, and I think in the United States in general, are far more advanced than we are over here. I think we're quite conservative with some of our sports and how we approach athletes.
Yeah, you know, and I think that you have to understand, like, building a player and building the popularity behind one person is going to draw so much interest into the sport, into the team, and that's something that Conor did. Is, you know, we had a relatively small fan base within the UFC, and then you have a personality and a brand like him that stands out, and people gravitate and will be fans of MMA just because of him. So having those big personalities and those brandings, it helps the fellow teams and the fellow sport. Yeah,
you mentioned Dancing with the Stars, you mentioned Chop there, you also mentioned your book, which came out earlier this year. It's quite a tough read in some parts of it. What persuaded you, or what kind of, at what point did you decide that it was the right time for you to share with the world your story of your bullying and sexual assaults when you were younger?
You know, for me, and I never necessarily knew when the right time would be, but I had quite a few people reach out to me on social media and say that they had gone through these instances, and if somebody that doesn't even know me can share and talk about how I inspired them, then I felt like it was my turn to like inspire people and share my story. And it really, I feel like I was put in the UFC for a reason, and it's not I'm not meant. And yeah, it was a hard thing to share, but it was a part of my life, and it came out right around the Me Too movement, and I felt it was a perfect time to kind of create that wave and hopefully create a lot of differences in like the world, and especially with like the whole anti-bullying stigma going on right now, because it is so prevalent in our schools now more than ever.
Yeah, is that, like when you talk about the Me Too movement there, do you feel that it's something that's yet to really penetrate in sports?
I do. I mean, I feel like it's a hard topic in sports, because especially when you have women athletes, we're already trying so hard to stand out as an athlete, and then to actually have to go through something like that and make that well known or to draw a light to it is really hard. So I feel like as women athletes, we already have so many like hurdles to jump, and then on top of having something like that to get through, it can be really hard.
So when you're putting pen to paper in the book, it's not just trying to recount extremely difficult experiences in your life, it's also trying to come to terms with the idea of how you might view it as being a female athlete talking about this sort of stuff.
It definitely is. I mean, it definitely changes the way you're looked at forever, and that was one thing that I had to know. And even going back to like your brand, knowing that could hurt my brand, it could hurt the way people view me, but I also had to understand my image is who I am, and that's something that happened to me, and I want my image to you know, to show the things that I've been through and the way that I've overcome, and the way that I want to change women, and the way we speak up, and the way we share, and to change bullying in schools and all those things, to use my brand for that purpose.
Yeah. How has the feedback been? Have you heard first-person narratives about how you've inspired different people?
I definitely have. And you know, there's no matter what, you're going to have those few negative voices, but there's been so many positive ones, and to have so many people reach out and say your story inspired me, or to have people, I've been able to talk on the phone to different girls who have gone through similar things and help them get through a hard time, or help them get through a trial that they're going through because of all of this, and to be able to share and actually know that my voice was helping people makes me feel like me being in the UFC was even worth it. That's what it's all for.
You speak like somebody who's over what happened. Like I presume it happened in your late teens.
Yeah, like 10 years ago.
It's remarkable that at the age of 24 you were able to put pen to paper on that. Everybody recovers at different times, but did you feel over those 10 years it was a constant recovery maybe the process of actually putting it out into the open was a cathartic experience for you, and that's actually helped the process?
It definitely was a very hard process to go through, and I feel like you never fully recover and you never are fully healed, but things get easier and you're able to like accept what happened and not be, you know, feelings of resentment fall to the past. And it's something that you have to work on daily, because going through any sort of traumatic experience, it's always going to be in the back of your mind. But I felt like that's why it was so important for me to share everything, because I had so many, you know, young girls reach out and know that I had gone through something and I made it through. I wanted to show them that there is a light at the tunnel. You can be successful even though you went through something so hard.
Do you think you had that innate strength at the time to help you get through it?
No, and that was, you know, I needed somebody to talk to, and I needed somebody to look up to, and I didn't have my voice back then, and I do have it now, and I can use it to share.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's a great platform, and I'm completely for everybody using a platform like that to try and help people out in whatever situation they may be in. It's kind of a little bit more trivial, but I did want to talk to you about your fighting career, because
yeah. I signed my fight contract, so I'll be fighting January 19th on the first ESPN card for the UFC.
Right, nice one. That is going to be a big night for the UFC.
It is a big night, so I'm very, very excited.
Talk to us a little bit about the injury. It's grueling enough details, but
oh my gosh,
it was a tough one.
Yeah, so I did a spinning back fist in my last fight, and I broke my ulna. If you can see my fun scar now.
God.
It's a really big one. So I was supposed to have one surgery where they put a plate and a bunch of screws in, and that was supposed to fix it. And it was supposed to be ready to like start training in 3 months. Well, 6 months went by and my arm was still totally broken. It had like 0% sign of healing, so it still just had a crack through my arm. So they had to take the old plate out, put a much bigger, stronger one in, and they took a bone graft from my hip, filled it, and then now we are 3 months past the second surgery, but 10 months past the fight. So it's been but yeah, things are awesome right now. I'm showing tons of progress in my arm, and I should be cleared to 100% start training this month.
Wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
So they took a little bit of bone out of your hip to actually put into the bone?
Yeah, so they went in and scraped off a bunch of bone from my hip, and then they took platelets out of my hip to fill the crack, and then they put, it's like putting like live tissue where everything is dead, and so it's supposed to help it, you know, come back to life.
Right, okay, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That 10 months must have been tough.
It's been a very hard 10 months, but at the same time I've had a lot of really exciting things happen. You know, I got married, which was awesome. My husband's fighting career is taking off. I've been able to come to this, go through so it was a productive time off, but I definitely am very much itching to get back into
your fighting career.
Gosh, as long as no injuries happen, which I can't guarantee, I definitely want to try to get a few fights back to back within the UFC. So that's my goal.
What were the UFC like during the injury? Actually, were they happy to help out? Were they happy to kind of give you the reassurance that there will be another contract coming down the line?
I'm in my fight contract right now with the UFC, so I knew that the option for me to get back into the UFC once I knew I would get a fight contract whenever I was able. So
we can expect to see you back in January, but we can't announce the opponent just yet. When can we expect the
announcement? Soon, I hope. I'm waiting for the clearance from the UFC.
Let's hope so. Well, Paige VanZant, it's been great to chat to you. Congratulations on all your successes, and best of luck for the future.
Thank you so much.
Impressive stuff there.
Yeah, obviously at the end there, a horrific injury that she sustained in her last fight. I'm not sure you can see the VT there, but a scar running all the way from here right the way through to the wrist. So being through the wars, I think it's fair to say. But in the meantime, obviously, done quite a bit with her time, from Dancing with the Stars to going on Chopped to writing a book. So she's made the most of her injury.
She's made money, lots of money.
She's made a lot of money, absolutely. And she's obviously announced her next fight as well, which if you go onto her Instagram account, you'll be able to find that out. And you were saying that yesterday she announced after that interview that she's going to the WWE, or were you joking?
So Stephanie McMahon was backstage having done her piece, and they missed each other. But we had David Meltzer on, who's like he used to work for the super agent Lee Steinberg, who's the inspiration for Jerry Maguire, and on stage, like it was a fairly obvious question. So Ronda Rousey made loads of money from like getting her head kicked in, and was very famous. And now she's making loads of money not getting her head kicked in because wrestling's fixed. And
What?
And so brought this up. Dave Meltzer was like, "Yeah, you got a meeting with it. I sorted it out." So it was like, it'll be a little Lisbon marriage.
Did you just reveal off the record information there, backstage information that wasn't in the public domain?
No, I did it on stage yesterday.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
That would have been awkward. At least we could have broke the story.
No, I mean, what George Mendes was saying backstage, that was interesting.
Let's not get into that on air.
No, he wasn't saying anything backstage. He was talking to an astronaut. George Mendes, an astronaut, and Nico Rosberg were on stage together for about 10 minutes yesterday. It's like, what?
What were they talking about? What was the theme?
Well, so George Mendes is a super agent who has represented most of the most famous footballers in the world and made all the money. So he was getting a special merit award for being rich.
Oh, class.
What exactly was the merit?
Innovation, creativity.
Portuguese person?
Well, that was it. I mean, there was another Portuguese person who might have been in the running for that award, but then some stuff happened, and so they had to like go, is there another Portuguese person who's popular and not currently the subject of fairly horrific allegations? Oh, George Mendes, come on down.
It's a good business model, right? That right there. The one thing I do love, like I saw Nico Rosberg, wasn't chatting to him or anything, but I always
small.
Literally just about to say that. I love when I see a world-class athlete who's the same height or shorter than me. I'm like, I feel so good about life. And Nico Rosberg, I think he's shorter than me. So thank you very much for making me feel very happy, Nico.
You love the jockeys then, Owen. You're a big fan of Friday Night Racing with all the little jockeys.
Well, obviously Friday Night Racing is top quality content, so that's the reason I watch.
Don't say content. Nobody likes anybody who says content.
Hashtag content.
Ugh.
So let's bring you through the newspaper headlines. A bunch of different newspaper headlines that we're going to start with. I think The Independent today. The lead is O'Neill slams crazy view of Rice missed opportunity. By the way, I don't want to be included here at all because it might affect me, he might have thought, says Martin O'Neill, putting himself in the mind of Declan Rice all the way back during the Moldova game when Declan Rice was like kissing the badge. It's like, I don't want to be involved in this game. I don't want my first cap to be in a competitive interest. I definitely don't want this. Before England had tapped him on the shoulder and gone, we've got a shit midfield. You can play midfield instead of that guy. Pick whoever you want to pick. Eric Dyer, especially you, Eric.
It's also in those quotes from Martin O'Neill, he says, should we start picking 15-year-olds?
Yes. Straight in the team.
It's actually, I've heard worse ideas than actually locking people down. It's like...
Because the Nations League is so important. It's really, 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 really important.
If you said to Wayne Rooney when he was 15 years old, before he came on the scene with Everton at all, you're going to be an international footballer, you've got Irish heritage, come play for Ireland, we'll cap you right now at the age of 15. Just do it with everybody. Just play a load of competitive games, or in every single competitive game, play a load of potentially capped youngsters.
You make it sound like extraordinary rendition, but that seems to be a plausible tactic for world governments.
You could just use the Nations League as a ground to just play a team of 15-year-olds who are all English but have got Irish grandparents.
Yeah.
Just transform the whole process of that tournament.
It's the way of the future. GPA to raise concerns over December games, so the Gaelic Players Association are going to meet with the Leinster Council and members of the CCCC tomorrow about the O'Byrne Cup, which is starting in December.
Like, that's an absolute joke, the fact that the O'Byrne Cup is starting in December. I wonder, are they starting the O'Byrne Cup early for fear that it actually spills into the season once again and they actually have to move league games or, use the bye week in the league to actually play some O'Byrne Cup games? I know it didn't happen in the O'Byrne Cup, or it did happen in the O'Byrne Cup last year. Meath played the final. The final happened during the league, didn't it? Same with the Dr. McKenna Cup. So, at least they're going to avoid that particular obstacle. But it is, I really hope teams aren't training too much before this, that if they're actually training to actually hit the ground running for the O'Byrne Cup, then they're probably looking around themselves at the moment, and they're probably in the gym right now as we speak. To be fair, most inter-county players are probably in the gym right now as we speak anyway, getting ready for pre-season. So, I don't know, the GPA are dead right to voice some concerns in that, because at least give them until the new year to start this mammoth season.
Ireland are playing the North in football, obviously, and so inside the Independent today, Martin O'Neill says James McLean playing the North could have been an issue if the game was in Belfast. This is grim enough. I would really need to sit down and have a conversation with him. I'm looking at this and I'm prepared to change my mind on it. But if this is an issue that is preventing him from playing in front of his home crowd, then I think we've all got to look at things, if that's the case. So because of the Poppy issue, there's a possibility that he wouldn't have been able to play in Belfast if we were playing in Windsor Park. I've got to say, I'm not really sure why we're playing Northern Ireland in a friendly. Like, I'm just not sure if it's a good idea at the moment with everything that's going on. I understand that, like, we're having this joint bid, but, like, a joint bid doesn't mean the fans interact.
Yeah, I think that's kind of just epitomises the whole tensions that's going on up there. Without, like, that's obviously a sports story, but it reflects the mood up there at the moment. And I just think it is something that we have to be very, very mindful of. Like, as all of the talks going on and everything that's happening at the moment, I just think that's more than just a story. It's more than just what it appears to be. It kind of gives a lot of context, I suppose.
Or else that's the reason, or else that's a very good reason to play them in a friendly. I mean, you look at them like, kind of shaking hands and saying, we're going to launch this great joint bid for the Under-21 European Championships. And it's like, isn't it great that we can park our differences for one moment?
But it just takes one person to be of a different mind, and then it's something different.
Yeah, so can we all get along? And maybe we'll go down without a hitch, but it is grim that in the year 2018, Martin O'Neill is saying probably not safe for one of our players to play a football game in Belfast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on from the Indo. We're going to do the Irish Times next. Gordon Darcy, my part in the greatest Irish victory that never was. Schmidt's side have grown since Chicago 2016 changed the narrative for Irish rugby. So it did. You were there, weren't you?
The sort of demons of my past being dragged up there. But that was great heartbreak having to watch that on a tablet, I think at the time. But Gordon Darcy says he only cried 3 times in during his rugby career. One of them was after that All Blacks game where they were amazing for 79 minutes. One of them was after winning one of the Heineken Cups with Leinster. And then the other time was when he got concussed and he didn't know what was happening. He just started crying. So it's a bit of an insight to what the mindset was of that camp after that near miss in 2013, wasn't it? November 2013. It would be mad if we were still sitting here talking about that being our kind of closest miss with the All Blacks. I think Chicago's given us that we can actually move the narrative on a small bit, because it was kind of feeling that 2013 will go down in infamy forever and ever.
So it's all rugby across the first 2 pages of the Times this morning. Jerry Thornley writes, coaches not looking backwards as Kearney set to miss out against Pumas. They've also been talking to Andrew Conway because he has been doing the media this week. So if Kearney's out against Argentina, is he fit to come back? Is he not going to... Do we suddenly have Jordan Larmour playing fullback?
Well, obviously Joe likes everybody involved for the entire week. So it's going to come down to the idea of whether or not Rob Kearney can train for the entire week against the All Blacks. Like, is there even a decision to be made if Rob Kearney misses the Monday and Tuesday of training?
Yeah, I think there is. I think Andrew Conway might be...
Oh, yeah.
I think that it,
But I mean,
it's hard to know, because obviously the defensive stuff against the All Blacks is very important, and if there's any question marks about Larmour, and I don't know. I mean, I would love to see Larmour play, but
yeah,
you get to go to lots of rugby matches.
Yeah.
You get tickets for everything.
I do, and it's great.
Yeah.
But not to the extent where I could have an informed opinion, other than I've seen him on Instagram, which is where a lot of, you were talking, was it you that were talking to somebody about being a brand and a sports person?
Yeah, Paige VanZant, who just watched the interview there, I'm sure you saw it.
I was like clearly gripped to it, not getting coffee, but like that is a completely fascinating facet of sport now, and that there are so many people who are trying to build themselves up as a plan B, because you see it with all these sports stars, and that they get to the age of retirement. Like Jamie Heaslip is the perfect example. He was at an event I was at a few weeks ago, and he was kind of saying that because he's retired now, he has to have all these side hustles going on, because he's still a really, really young guy, really ambitious, really driven, has that discipline of being a professional sports star, and now you're like, what do I do with the rest of my life? It's a long period to fill. Yeah, it's true. And you wonder if, when people talk about the idea of, say, going to college during their GA career or their rugby career, or in some rare cases during their soccer career, I wonder if this should also be kind of part of the overall holistic view of your life, that while I'm a professional sports person, I should be absolutely milking my social media, posting as much as possible, creating as much of a brand as possible, so that when I am out of the game, I'm as famous as possible, and that brand will be as big as possible, and my livelihood will be a hell of a lot easier. Yeah. So 100%. I just think we need to be a little bit more open about that. It's kind of like frowned upon, where especially
in some sports, like say you viewed somebody and it was like, okay, this person's only got to where they are
GA,
because of the.
you mean?
It doesn't really happen in GA. I don't think. I think there's more of a meritocracy. I think what I'm trying to say, it happens quite a lot in combat sports where people are like, you've got a massive profile, you're a good talker, therefore you get to where you are. And if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Don't make any bones about the idea. Be a good talker, improve your brand, and that's just a different part. That's like your training.
Yeah.
It's just creating the brand is part of that training. It is part of your process of being an athlete. And maybe some other sports could actually learn a thing or two from that.
But that it's different in combat sports because that gets in the fights.
Yeah.
So that makes everybody money. In soccer, if you're the Instagram superstar but you're a mediocre footballer, your teammates hate you.
Yeah.
There was also an element though of selling a lot of jerseys, right? Or whatever.
Pogba.
Yeah.
But like, so it's hard to find somebody off the top of my head who's a mediocre sports person who has a massive social following. I mean,
like there is still largely a link. Like there's. We're not suggesting here that they're completely separate things, that profile and skills are separate. I think that by and large, you have to be extremely good at what you do to be able to build that base of a following. Like, I mean, nobody would be taking Paige VanZant, for example, seriously unless she was very, very good in the octagon.
I think that's going to change. So that's my fear, is that it's going to creep in. Like, we're seeing it now in business, we're seeing it in technology. It's only a matter of time before we see it in sport, where somebody has a following and they become better known than somebody who's better skilled because of their social following.
I'd say it's definitely happening.
In combat sports, I would say it is. But like, as you say, there's a reason why that happens. It's because everybody gets paid. Like, has it seeped into football, where business decisions are being impressed upon a manager when it comes to selection? Maybe it is.
When it comes to a selection, probably. Like, you can't drop Pogba because he deserves to play, and you should be able to get more out of him than you're getting. But whether or not he was worth the money they paid purely on the football is questionable, right?
Yeah, that's true. But whether or not he was worth the money based on everything else that he brings to the football club and bringing his brand with him, that kind of improves the argument. So definitely, that's kind of an unanswerable. I would say, but that's a business decision. Ultimately, designing a player is definitely a business decision.
Let's move on. The Examiner this morning, Flash Harry, Kane double completes Spurs comeback, Red Star. Not Liverpool. So Liverpool suddenly in a bit of danger in the group.
Yeah, so themselves, Napoli and PSG locked 2 and 6. Liverpool are on 6 points, Napoli on 6 points, and PSG on 5 points, if I'm not mistaken. So obviously they had that great night at Anfield against PSG, but then they've got to go to Paris in the last game week. Napoli coming to Anfield next, obviously a huge match for Liverpool. The thing is, that should decide it. If they win that, then they're going to be home and hosed, so or relatively home and hosed. They'll be almost there. So that's kind of the big incentive for them, that they can actually seal this thing and seal progression at Anfield, or go as close as they possibly can. But certainly after the way they hammered Kurvina, or however you pronounce it. Excuse me, that would you would have thought that would have been that done. We could just have like a Red Star Belgrade off in terms of who could actually pronounce the team best. But yeah, I thought that thing was signed, sealed and delivered when they hammered them in the first match of the doubleheader.
Larry Ryan has a piece about Amanda Stapleton, and she's done an interview with him about the match in Borrisolea at the weekend. 6,000 people showed up to watch Tip and Kilkenny, basically the two 2009 teams going at it, and it's pretty amazing that so many people did show up. And like, obviously it's a very emotional interview where she's talking about how the turnout is helping her to have the will to fight for as much time as she can get, having been diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumour. Her brother Paddy was obviously the captain of the Tip team in the game, and her other brother Shane, who works here with us, was obviously one of the driving forces behind putting the whole thing together. So you can contribute to the Amanda Stapleton Fund on gofundme.com/Amanda Stapleton Fund, or you can get more information at Amanda Fund on Twitter. To move on, Paul Pogba is obviously, in inverted commas, loving life at Manchester United. I mean, the papers have put the inverted commas on it, but like, he might as well have gone, yeah, I mean, I obviously love it. It's like, of course I love it here. I'm like, I barely have to do anything. Everybody thinks I'm great when I do good stuff, and everybody hates me when I do bad stuff.
Yeah, and it seems that this kind of war of who to blame who is the culprit for Manchester United's underwhelming form seems to have shifted firmly in Jose Mourinho's favour, or lack of favour, really. Paul Pogba's like, nobody's blaming me anymore, whereas 12 months ago people were like, not sure about this guy. And I think he's got a point. I think you see Paul Pogba when he gets played, when he gets a little bit more freedom in the park. I'm not saying that this is the sole reason, his positioning for some underwhelming form over the past 12 months, but that cross he put in for Rashford's winner on Saturday, getting himself into an advanced position, I'd certainly like to see a little bit more from Paul Pogba in that position. And who knows, Jose Mourinho's replacement, probably going to happen sooner rather than later, might actually get that out of him.
Well, we'll see. Very briefly, the Mirror, Shonny Johnson is talking about the Cavan and Monaghan teams. Talking about there was probably maybe 10 or 12 players that would have been on the Cavan panel if they were able to commit for whatever reason. It's a big commitment. It's one you have to be fully ingrained in, and one that you really have to want to do. There's no point in doing it otherwise. You'd be selling yourself short if you went in and didn't really want to be there. So it's a big commitment. That's the first step. I know that's one thing that Mickey will be looking to try and get all the best players playing in Cavan. If we use Monaghan as an example, I don't think there's one player that should be on the Monaghan panel that isn't on it. I think they have everyone, or nearly everyone. They're maxing out on every player they have. So what is it about Monaghan football that makes people want to play inter-county football versus other counties where it's like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go and play for the county? Success?
I think it might be as simple as that, or whatever their view of success is, which is being a Division 1 county consistently, which is what they are, able to compete. And the prospect of light at the end of the tunnel is a very attractive thing for a lot of inter-county players, which is kind of a sad thing to say, that in a lot of cases there is no sort of carrot, there's no guarantee that your summer will be worthwhile. Like, is your summer going to be worthwhile because you represent your county?
No.
There you go. Like, whereas for Monaghan, is your summer going to be worthwhile? Well, yeah, we could get back to another All-Ireland semi-final. We might even go that step further and get to an All-Ireland final next year. Now, obviously, not every county can be in that position, but ultimately, how do you change that? And it comes back to the phrase of the moment, which is championship structures. If there was a structure in place that provided that idea of whatever their version of Monaghan potentially reaching an All-Ireland final is, that realistic goal and dream, then you'll have a lot less people who are disillusioned with their inter-county lives.
One last story to get to here. It's from Der Spiegel. It is the football leaks, and it's the story of how Manchester City managed to diddle their accounts by having an image rights deal, fake money, separate company, off books, paying for the image rights of the players so it doesn't appear financial fair play, screw you. And so I was chatting with some people who know this story intimately yesterday here, and they were like, ooh, this is going to be very interesting to see what happens. I'm like, well, is it? Are you ever going to say, I'm sorry, Man City, you can't play in the Champions League? You're playing the best football that people have seen in a decade. You've got an amazing team. You've got Pep Guardiola. Okay, so you can fill your stadium. Are they going to kick them out of the Champions League?
If somebody really pushes the envelope on this, as in one of their Super League rivals, but is that going to happen? Are they going to risk the idea that this would lead to more stringent financial fair play regulation? Like, it's very interesting actually looking at some of the quotes there from the Manchester City investors, saying that they just had this cold acceptance that we will not achieve what we want to achieve if we abide by the laws here. If we abide by financial fair play, we are not going to come anywhere close to the level of success that we want. So they said, well, we're just going to break the rules, and let's hope it goes with it. So I think ultimately, who's going to rat them out? Who's going to be the person, that superpower club that helps force this issue? Well, I certainly can't see one.
No, I don't think so.
There has been rumours over the last 24 hours that there has been complaints made by other clubs. I'd like to actually see the temerity of them. Like, there is a lot of optics going around, like Manchester United making sounds that, oh yeah, we're not happy with this. But really, how unhappy are they? How much will they force the issue?
One final thing from one of the Swedish newspapers. So Zlatan is going to release a follow-up to I Am Zlatan, which was his autobiography. Which
didn't write it.
I mean, most people don't write their own autobiographies.
But fictitious.
A little bit, but like, also not really. Like, I would suspect all of the stuff that Zlatan thinks in the book, he thought in real life.
But what about the stories? A lot of the stories are made up.
But that happens all the time. Like, that happens all the time. Do you know the story in the US where there was like an anchor for NBC News, and he kept on telling the story on like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon about how during the war in Iraq he was in a helicopter that was shot down, and then it transpired that he'd actually misremembered it. He was not in a helicopter, it was not shot down.
Brian Williams,
yeah. He told that story consecutively around the place. It also happened, like, there are other instances where that happens. People misremember, or they're a bit creative or very liberal with their own story.
Exactly, they misremembered. Zlatan misremembered all that stuff. I think it happened in Zlatan's head. That's my, like...
He certainly misremembers very well, I'll give him that much.
Yeah, he was brilliant. So, there's a new... It's Amazon have a Stephen Gerrard documentary out this week or next week. So it's being released in cinemas in England, and then it's like Amazon around the world. And he's doing press for it. And yesterday, our reporter went to Rangers to interview him, and the press people came and said, "Yeah, so about the sectarian issue in Scottish football, don't ask him about that, and don't ask him about his wife's response to the vitriol. Maybe say you got a lot of vitriol." And the reporter was like, "No, we'll just ask him the questions." And so the reporter sat there for 5 hours waiting for them to come back, and they never came back. They didn't even tell him that they'd cancelled. So he went on Twitter yesterday going, "What's going on here?" No comment from Rangers, no comment from Stevie G. The reason I bring this up is because Zlatan is potentially going to be making one of those documentaries, according to some inside information we got yesterday. I mean, I would watch a Zlatan movie.
I would watch a 10-part series, each episode being 10 hours, and with after credits and everything. I absolutely would. And at least, you know, if he wants to misremember the truth, put it on a screen. Actually show us that misremembering of the truth, and then I'll believe it.
Yeah, don't make me read. Just put it before me.
Exactly. Yeah, there's too much creativity you can have on the pages of a book.
That's fair.
Yeah. Okay, so Jess, what are you doing today?
I am milling around. We're doing a number of interviews, so I'm recording my show from here this week. We have an exclusive with Netflix, actually, which is quite good. We're sitting down with their Chief Technology Officer later on, which is going to be good.
Can you make it be a bit less buggy on the Smart TV app?
That will be my first question. Like, forget anything else.
Hey,
Can
buddy,
you sort out Jared Gilroy's TV?
On the,
yeah, I'll ask him. I'll let you know tomorrow. And then we're also going to be on the Startup University stage, looking at startup communities and what impact that has on local communities. So we see it a lot in Dublin. It's happening here in Lisbon now. So what happens to the people around the place?
Yeah, like, so we've been coming here since it started, and you can see the skyscrapers around here shooting up. The entire arena and the whole area has been regenerated. So the first year you come and it's like, well, that's all boarded up, that's pretty empty. This is a bit of an industrial wasteland. And now it's like, oh, that's now a sushi restaurant. It's
becoming Dublin. It's exactly where we were. And I spoke to Paddy a few weeks ago, and he was saying that they're like the Lisbon and the Portuguese government's commitment to develop the city to cater for Web Summit is a big draw for them. That's why they signed the 10-year deal. So I was talking to an Uber driver, and he was saying that there's a new airport terminal. There's going to be like a whole host of apartments, a whole host of hotels that are being built to cater for this. But you're seeing a number of startups that are now basing themselves here, and it can be attributed back to Web Summit being here. So when people, like back home, people always kind of say like, whatever about Web Summit.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just a conference.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a huge economic benefit to it. People are coming here similar to
a guy from Daimler who own Mercedes, and the reason they come and advertise is to try and attract talent. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense now that you explain to me why you have like cars here. Like, oh, we're actually a floating computer as opposed to an engineering thing.
Yeah.
It's like computer engineers as opposed to car designers.
But that's true of every car brand. So I again spoke to the country manager of Audi in Ireland, and he was saying that at the moment they're hiring more tech people than they are car people. It's all about innovation. It's looking at how voice control technology can be used. The whole thing of driverless cars, I think a lot of focus when you think tech and cars is driverless cars, but that technology exists, it's there, but it's all about the legislation, the ethical questions, coders, all that kind of stuff.
But we definitely didn't need 70,000 high-spending tourists coming to Ireland in the off-season. We definitely did not need the Red Summit in Ireland. It was like an absolutely sound decision to go, oh, you want some stuff, do you? Screw you.
But I don't think it
Go man, Enda. Go man. So,
and I could be a hater.
I disagree, because you can have it in different places. Like you can. You don't need the RDS and the convention centre, and the convention centre could be the developers.
No, okay. So hang on, you spent the day on the stage yesterday. I spent the day on the stage yesterday. I had to go. I think you were just on the one stage, but I had to go from one place to another place. I could not get from the RDS to the convention centre in 10 minutes to try and get from one talk to another talk and then go somewhere else for an interview.
You would definitely need to plan things a bit better. I accept that you would need to plan things a bit better, but you could have different centres and actually the whole city could be alive.
You could get a Garda escort from one to the other.
Can't get Garda escorts in Ireland for anything, no matter what you do. I mean, you can get it for whatever you want if you happen to know somebody who'll tip the wink to somebody.
Personally, I'd just like to say I'm perfectly fine with the Web Summit being in Lisbon. I've got absolutely no issue with Portugal whatsoever.
Aside from the rain.
It's brilliant.
The rain's not great,
yeah, the rain has not been great. Anyway, let's move on. So last night, Kevin Caban sport last night. Have a look.
It was a really, really below par performance, and that's only 3 wins down the last 9.
Exactly. They won their first 7. Everyone's talking about Liverpool moving to another level.
Yeah.
As Keith says, 3 wins in the last.
Well, I think we looked at it, the midfield area tonight. We thought, well, these 3 might be able to control the tempo of the game, and they simply didn't. Up front, they created a couple of chances. Sturridge missed one in the first. Are they at the level of a Barca or a Bayern, Real Madrid? You mean getting to the final last year is great, but tonight they never controlled the game away from home. They didn't weather the storm early. They didn't. They conceded chances. It wasn't isolated incidents that's got they had on the ball and created, apart from maybe a 10-minute spell, the start of that second half created virtually nothing. Long throws and corners being put into the area. That was all they created.
They're not at the level they were at last year.
Yeah. And of course, Virgin Media Sport is the new home of European football in Ireland, with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nation League games live this season. Virgin Media Sport is exclusive to all Virgin Media TV whenever and wherever they like. So André Villas-Boas was floating around yesterday, and I've never seen a happier human being in my life. He just bounced in and was like, this is amazing, look at this is great. Definition of it. And like, why wouldn't you be? I don't know how much money he's made, but I'd say it's around 10 to 15 million in about a 4-year period. It was like, yeah, you're fired, here's your contract. Yeah, we're going to hire you on a massive contract. Yeah, you're fired, here's your contract.
Zenit.
Oh, Zenit. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know what I expected from André Villas-Boas yesterday, but it certainly wasn't that. As you say, such a happy man, but such a gentleman, like so good with his time, willing to sit down. Like when we did our interview yesterday, Tommy literally just approached him in the restaurant and was like, are you free to chat to with his time, which is probably true for a lot of people here, but like just happiness
looks
exuding
healthy
from every pore.
He's like a healthy.
He's always looked healthy, to be fair, or maybe a little bit. That's the very definition of what happened. It did wear him down. He hates the idea of short-term vision when it comes to football.
Just on that, right? Because 2010, Porto for 1 season, 2010, 2011, Chelsea for 1 season, 2011, 2012, Spurs for 1 season, 2012, 2013, Zenit for 2 years, in fairness, 2014, 2016, and then Shanghai for a year. So short term.
He really loves coaching. He really loves working with players and seeing them progress, which is not something you can really afford to do under Roman Abramovich. He doesn't really care about which next new teen sensation you're looking after and nurturing and turning into the next superstar. He wants trophies and he wants them now, whereas André Villas-Boas is more of a...
Mind.
All right, as you can see, André Villas-Boas is with me. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good stuff. I was watching some of your chat with Andy Mitten earlier on. It was called Managing to Stay Ahead, which is interesting because it was a lot of talk about young people, successful young people, and of course, you were a very successful young person. And I often wondered, thinking, this is a dream come true, this is amazing.
Yeah, well, it all happened very quickly. You know, the funny thing on that was I never got time enough to to enjoy this. The achievements came almost at incredible speed. So I started my coaching career after 8 months. I moved 10 months. I moved to Chelsea. That wasn't successful, but after I moved to Tottenham, and then from Tottenham to Zenit, won the championship and the cup there. So it kind of happened very, very quickly. So I'm now only 41, which is the age that normally a coach starts.
I think you'd be like the second youngest Premier League manager of you in the Premier League
I think
now.
so, yeah.
Or maybe the youngest. I think Eddie Howe was 40, I think, and I think he'd be second youngest.
Could be. It was a special time for me, of course, winning all these trophies at a young age, but really.
It's the irony, isn't it? As a successful person, you can't be happy with what you have, but ultimately, as a successful person, you'll never get to enjoy your successes. So it's a conflict.
Yeah, I think a reflection of what happens in society right now, which is the request for change, the constant change and urgency. So you just want to move on, and you demand more from yourself, and you want to try new things. So that always happened to me. Funny enough, it reflects a little bit of my childhood, and wanting something else, something different all the time. And this still marks a little bit of my human characteristics right now.
Well, of course, we may as well chat a little bit about that. I was going to ask it at the end, but you say you're trying new things, like the Dakar Rally. When we saw the rally driver, we thought this is amazing. You still doing some of that?
Yeah, I did a few other runs. So the last one was a rally from the World Championship of the FIA. Sport in the end was bred through my family. So if you ask if I come from a football family, I don't. I come from a more motorsports engineering family. That's what marks us, our family. My father is an engineer. My uncle is a mechanical engineer, and he also did the Dakar 3 times. A personal challenge for me, and it's always funny to test yourself in your own motivations and ambitions, and particularly when you have to get the car out of the sand. And
that's a challenge.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
What's more exhilarating, or being on the sideline winning a UEFA Cup with Porto? Well, how do those two things compare?
Football is amazing in terms of stress and emotional requests that it demands from you. It's absolutely incredible. Of the network of fans that love the club, that have learned to love the club since they were when you reach the match days. So I think nothing compares to that excitement, and when you achieve a win for your team and for those fans in the end.
What I find very interesting about your career, and you mentioned it there, was that Chelsea perhaps didn't go so well for you, Tottenham perhaps didn't go so well for you, but I'd imagine you're a successful person, you always want to succeed, you learn from those experiences. But it seems that in football we have a culture of if you fail once or if you didn't succeed once, straight away you're out of the league.
Yeah, this is true. In fact, it's one of the points that I have to speak next. There is in nowadays less tolerance for the people who fail and for those who fail and how you fail. You really have to bounce back immediately. I decided to do and conditions to succeed as well. So I kind of went away from the European scenario of the top 5 leagues, let's say, and moved on to the Russian league from winning the league there. I think if you want to measure hatred, you go into Twitter during a match day. There are social networks that reflect not criticizing Twitter because it has potential on another ways, but if you want to see the dynamics of the emotion of football and the negativity towards someone at a certain time, you go into a Twitter account and follow the scores on how the people comment and the negativity that brings. So I think
really personal stuff.
Yeah, I think this reflects urgency, short-term vision, immediate success that is demanded from us right now. Not only from managers, but I think also from people in their work. So it's a difficult one to manage. I had offers to go back to England, which I have refused because I love my passion for coaching and I love to teach. And what the Premier League offers is an emotional stimulus and prestige second to none. But it takes time away from what you love, which is to teach and to coach. Because you have to focus on the present, on the emotion. And I think it really took a little bit of the pleasure from that side, which I love, which is preparation, analysis of the opponent.
Okay, so some slight technological issues at the Tech Summit. André Villas-Boas interview cut short. The audio is not working properly.
Hashtag gremlins in the system. That's my buzzword for today.
Yeah, okay. Well, so look, we're obviously on the forum stage here at Web Summit, and unfortunately there have been some streaming issues which has resulted in people complaining about the quality of the audio. So I'm speaking really slowly now to make sure that doesn't fix your connection.
They still won't be able to hear you.
You just have to say every word in the sentence 10 times and then they get.
Okay, well look, what we do have instead is a brilliant report that Raf has done from the Irish under-15s, the youngest international, and spend some quality time with the coaches, the management, the logistical setup, the players themselves to see exactly how the under-15 team is run. So here is his report.
All right, Raf Giallo from Off the Ball's Team 33 here at Johnstown House in County Kildare. I'm here for the first of a 3-day training camp that the new set of Ireland under-15s are going to be taking part in. So it's happening in the Boyne Suite here in the Johnstown House, and just through these doors, the players, the coaches, fitness coaches, etc. will all be in there, and they'll be just kind of getting the first taste of international football. So we're going to be talking to the head coach, some of the assistant coaches, and the fitness coach as well.
So come on, what we're going to create in training today. 1, calm under pressure. Even in front of our own goal, relax. If we lose games, I'll take the blame. I'm the coach. Have you got that? I'll take the blame. Don't be worried. What else? Play between the lines. What else? Patient on it. Using, be patient using our overloads. And who's always our overload in our own tour? A goalkeeper, isn't it? Goalkeeper. What else? There's one more principle we need to get across today. No? If we go one side of the pitch, the pressing is high, where's the space? And we've got to walk it from A to B as quick as possible.
It's okay to do a long pass if it's the correct pass. Yeah. What we try to say to kids is we don't want you to panic and just kick the ball up the field. We want you to be calm under pressure. It's okay to make mistakes. You're only 14. So, as I said, there's a 13-year-old in the group. It's fine, relax, just stay calm. And if we can get them just to be calm under pressure in the first international, as they get older, they'll make decisions a little bit better for themselves. The session today was based against Poland. So, for example, we've a friendly game on Monday in preparation to our games against Poland. So Paul Ozam has picked a squad to play against us, and Paul is going to set up as the way Poland do. And then we worked now in terms of beating Poland's press. So Poland's going to press, they play a 4-2-3-1, but they're pressing a 1-4-4-2. So we looked at ways how we can get our free bodies on the ball. So we have an overload in midfield. So, the right positions to go for that.
You spoke about also the goalkeeper also being an overload, which we might not think about because we might think just try and play it as far as possible, but actually you were kind of talking about that goalkeeper, and I even noticed on the training pitch where they're standing in terms of the position is just outside the box, whereas the tradition years and years ago, even not just in Ireland but elsewhere, would have been stay on the line or within the probably up to the 60-yard box. Yeah. So it's interesting you're trying to bring that line forward. Yeah,
it's pivotal to what we want to do. So for example, without going too much into it, they're going to press us with their 9 and 10, so 2 centre forwards and 2 wingers. Yeah. And so our goalkeeper now will make it, and our backline of 4 will make it a 5v4. And if we get our 6, because we have a 3v2 midfield, if we get that 6 free, that means we have a 6v4 overload. So if we get them to go in the right positions at the right time, we should be able to break the press. That's the first step. But also then the kids need to realise then sometimes the better pass could be the longer pass over the press. And to me, my job, and I put it really simple, is if I can help the players make the correct decision at the correct time, that's my job done.
I remember speaking to Wim Kovermans, and this is back 6-7 years ago, so before Ruud Doctor came in, still in college, and he was talking about not necessarily trying to implement, say, a Dutch system, because it won't necessarily, these kind of systems don't necessarily work across countries, so you have to adapt. But in terms of formation, is 4-3-3 kind of the way you've been going, or are you kind of staying away from formations and maybe trying to instill just the base concepts? Principles, yeah. We, as an international manager, I'm not told I must play 1-4-3-3. I'm not told that. But just based on, I work in education here in the association, and based on the amount of club visits I went to, the associations I visit, research, 1-4-3-3 is probably the easiest way to develop football players in terms of balance of the team, 3 lines, triangles and diamonds across the pitch, overload in certain areas. That's why I play. Having said that, we played Cyprus last year and we played 1-4-3-3. They really pinned us quite high and we struggled. So in the second game we went 1-4-4-2 and went over the press. But to me that's development, because the kids now realise that the next time they come up against the press that Cyprus done, the best option was to go over the press where we had a 2v2. So that's development. So it's not about formations to me. We have certain principles, but formations, it's, is a suit to what players we have, or is a suit to win the game? There's a lot of variables in that. Yeah, and obviously you had Sean St. Ledger, who obviously represented Ireland at Euro 2012, scored the only goal we actually got in that tournament. He's working within the system and he's working with you. There's been a few other players, Robbie Keane, Damien Duff, that have they're starting on their badges and they're being integrated into the FAI. You tutored a few of them, didn't you? I think Keith Andrews as well, and a few of them, my job, I'm a coach educator, so I work from the Pro licence, DA licence, Elite UA licence, B licence, all DUA for courses. So when the players would come through the pathway, I was lucky enough that I built a relationship with them. So Robbie comes in when he was free. I helped him with his course, facilitated his course. Damien, I'm really good friends with Damien now. We took Damien in for a year with us, and he's now got the bug and he's loving it. He's addicted to it. Now I'm Sean's tutor and Sean's A licence, and the best way of learning is practical, in my opinion. So come in, have a look, and go from here, and it's best practice in my point of view. Yeah, and obviously they'd be experienced internationals, but it's obviously a very different ball game than trying to maybe think about the game in a different way, I guess. At times you get frustrated because they expect the 14-year-old kids to be able to do what they could do, when they were at their highest level. But it takes time. It does take time. They offer a hell of a lot of good information, experience to the young players. We're going to sit down, we'll have a lot of group chats, and we'll talk about Sean's experiences to the players and what went well for him and how he struggled from knockbacks and how he built his resilience, because he's a lot of injuries obviously, and the players can only learn from that.
Any player who makes it at the top level, has got Sean St. Ledger in the room, who's played for the national team at the highest level, played in the European Championships. His journey would not have been straightforward. So the journey these players will go on will have ups and downs, and it's important that we acknowledge that for young players that's part of the process. What we're going to talk about over the next 30-40 minutes or so, we'll look at how injuries should be managed for young players. It's an important challenge for parents, for coaches and for the players themselves. It's important that injuries are managed quickly and appropriately. Carl will talk about the types of injuries that players are likely to pick up if they're not managed well. And then we'll look at the nutrition side of things. Nutrition is a huge area.
Yeah, and again, we don't want to create a situation where players are, maybe hypersensitive or hyper-vigilant, where every tiny, sensation that they experience, that they're flagging it. I think these players will understand that there will be bumps and bruises along the way, and it's a normal part of the game. So really what we're trying to do is educate them about the types of presentations that need to be flagged. So in this age group, groin pain can start to develop if they're training heavily and maybe they don't have enough recovery between sessions. They can get heel pain or they can get knee pain. They'd be typical areas where gradual onset of symptoms can be a flag for players that maybe something isn't quite right. So it's more educating players, coaches and parents about the types of problems for this particular age group. And there are areas of the body that young players will often experience problems with as they grow. So, it's not unusual for players to get discomfort around their knees, which is a part of the growth process. But then it's listening to that and maybe managing their training around that to allow them to continue.
Yeah, the issue of workload as well. I think it came up when you were comparing, say, a kind of sample Premier League club, what they do at a similar age, and we clearly do less. I think from what I could gauge from that, are the Premier League clubs doing too much, or where's the happy balance there?
Yeah, and again, that's a good question. I don't think anyone has an answer for that, a perfect answer for that. So really, you could see that there was some variation between the Premier League clubs as well. Yeah. So if there was a perfect fit week that we knew worked, then everyone would be following the same practice. Yeah. But what I think we know is that players need to build up the capacity to train hard and to train frequently. But that building up process takes time. And at the moment, we need to start to introduce more training per week, so increase the frequency of sessions and work on building the intensity within those sessions, but being respectful that young players' bodies adapt over time and they can't suddenly be exposed to a massive change in their workload. Yeah. So to answer your question, what's the perfect week? There is no perfect week, but what we know is players need to be training more frequently than 2 nights a week, and really what we're suggesting now is can we get them to 4 football training sessions per week and have some strength and conditioning work around those sessions as well, and then a match at the weekend and preparing for that game at the weekend.
And especially like things like, say, doing that little bit of extra gym work, that comes down to facilities as well, because it is going to differ around the country.
And that's why we don't try to copy and paste what happens in full-time professional academy environments. And you've got to be respectful of where people are, what facilities they have available to them, and then how do we solve that problem? If a club doesn't have a strength and conditioning facility beside the training ground, then can that elite player, or even I don't want to use the word elite because these are developing players, can these developing players get access to a gym close to their school or close to their home, and then can they maybe get that 30 minutes of strength work done at a different time of the day, and then when they turn up to training they focus on their pitch session.
Your first impressions of what you've seen here today, because it was almost a day for the parents as much as the kids.
Yeah, it's like, as I was talking to one of the parents out there, and like I coach myself, and you're always going to find, as a coach, you're always going to find you want to better yourself. And I've picked up 3 or 4 things there today now that would have helped me when I was coaching, that I never knew about and I wouldn't have thought about. So as he said, we all have to work together, and I think if we all do work together, the future's bright for Irish football. But it is a collective thing, and if we don't work collectively, I don't think it's going to progress the way we want it to,
Yeah, there were kind of 2 points maybe that were very relevant to the parents, the education being one, nutrition being the other, and from what you saw here today, what did you make of that?
Yeah, education, definitely. Ben is, like as I said before, Ben has been away, he's gone away again now. He has to take time out of school, and my wife, more so than me, I'll let him get the football, but my wife would be very, very for the education, and I've spoke to Ben's school about it. So what they're going to do is they're actually going to give me stuff for him to bring and for him to do. Like if he's sitting in a hotel room for 3 or 4 hours, what can he do? Well, he can do this work and present it back to school, which I think is very good. And it is a valid point about the education, and also I myself, for the nutrition, I see kids when I played football, when I coached Ben and Sam, I was lucky for them to play in my team, but I would get up in the morning, get their food, get everything right, and I'd know straight away after 10 minutes watching the game what child didn't have a breakfast, and what child he was crying because he wasn't able to run after the ball, reason being a lot to do with the way he's got prepared for the match. But it's up to us. It's like the old saying, you hear there's an expression, you look at it, like if I'm standing there doing something and I'm showing my son, he's going to do it, but if I don't show him, he's not going to do it. And he made a very valid point about kids give them independence as regards, if you're cooking, get them to stand beside you, show them. And he was right. He said I'd be surprised if 4 lads could cook an omelette. Like, I don't even think 4 lads could crack an egg, never mind cook an omelette. So it is very, very important, and it's highlighted to me. Like, I've often been there making food, and Ben and Sam be sitting, so from now on I'm going to say, come over here, So, which I thought was very, very a valid point, and not only from, if I say it to Ben, he's going to say yeah, whatever, but now that it's come from the coaches, it'll make my life easier for him to listen and learn from me.
We're fortunate enough. I've got brothers that are senior internationals and still professional footballers, in Stephen and Alan Quinn. Ben has been around the professional environment for many, many years, and Stephen is his godfather, so he's fortunate in that sense that he's seen it all from a very, very young age, so it's not daunting to him. And me as a parent, I've been around with my brothers and would have helped them just as a mentor, if you like, all them years ago, and just being there for them. So it's familiar. We're going over all ground, you know. So it's familiar to us. So he's very fortunate in that sense. As regards to the League of Ireland, I think it's a good idea. What they initially did from under 17s, under 19s, but for me, I think it's wrong what they've done for under 15s, and now they've even gone lower to under 13s. I think it's really wrong. I just believe that it should. You don't try and fix what's not already broke, and it was never broke. The DDSL was one of the most successful, and is one of the most successful leagues in Europe. So it's probably another can of worms that I'm opening, probably a discussion for another day, essentially, you know. But yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting, because I think the point from what the FAI was thinking was actually to try and amalgamate as many of these leagues together, have clubs working together, and then start as early as possible. But obviously, from your point of view, maybe it should maybe start at 17 and maybe keep what was there before.
Well, they had it at 17s and 19s, and I think it was working. But again, they brought it in and brought it down to the 13s and 15s. It might work, it may work. They may have a platform, but again, I go back to, if it's not broke, don't try and fix it. And I definitely believe that it wasn't broke, and we produced some serious talent throughout the years. When you go, just to name a few, you've got Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, even going back as far as Paul Osama, who's in the room earlier on. Like, he would have played in the league. My own brother Stephen and Alan Quinn. You've got the likes of Willow Flood, Stephen McPhail. All these players came through that DDSL system. So Richie Dunn, like, there's so many of them you could go through. It just, I believe it was working, and we have broke it, or we're trying to break it, to try and refix it or remend it or bring it under a different brand. But hey ho.
I suppose the final point, do you think those players would still come through in the current system?
It's a question. Yeah, I'm sure they will come through, but whether they come through as a better player, how do we monitor, how do we manage it, and how do we see where the balancing is of the two of them? Like, it's not going to be for another 5-7 years you're going to see the results of the 13s, 15s, 17s, 19s FEI, as opposed to, for many years we could see it from under 6, 7s. The DDSL has produced the players.
One of the key issues for young players at this age is obviously going away on trial. How that situation is managed is really important, and it's not easy for parents, it's not easy for club coaches, and we need to sort of educate parents, educate club coaches on how that situation is dealt with.
They can't leave till their 16th birthday, so they're all home based here, so don't have as much communication with the English clubs. But I will say is that the players and the parents of the players, yes, England is an option, Scotland's an option. I still think they should look further afield. Like Sir Jack.
Actually, on that, that's something I would advocate as well. I remember even sitting in the stands I lived in Spain for a year down in Seville, and just fortunately enough, one of the games I went to, Stevie Finnan was playing right back for Espanyol. Now, injuries meant he didn't get too much game time over there, ended up coming back, I think. But do we have many scouts, or are there many scouts from abroad that come over, and like outside of, say, England and Scotland, that come over and actually look at our players, or is that something that still needs to be developed?
No, there's still scouts, but I think agents now, there's a lot more agents in the game now, especially at younger age, than ever. I think that's what the agents, I think, in my opinion, I mean, a lot of them do a good job, but they should be looking further afield. And I was going to say there, alluding to Jack Bourne, when Jack Bourne went over and played in Holland, he was outstanding, and it suited him, the style of playing, getting on the ball and playing, and that was probably arguably where he played his best football. And all I'm saying is, if there's a message I'm trying to say to the parents, is look further afield. England is an option. There's no problem with that. But look further afield. There's other opportunities. Football is it's a global game. It's a global game.
Is there worry maybe in terms of the parents obviously being further afield than England, where the language is the same and in some ways like food etc. won't be too different, and there's at least you can get over quite easily, whether it's by the ferry or a plane or whatever. That maybe that's the main factor that's stopping kids going further afield.
It could be. I'm not too sure, if I'm honest. But I would look at where the best opportunity will arise for my son. And if that is Spain or if it's Holland, Germany, it doesn't matter where. But if they're going to go and they're going to play and they're going to develop, that's where I would try to send them. That's what I would do. What's best.
Jason, thanks a million for taking the time.
Very welcome. Thank you.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.